So Bradford City have today announced the 2023-24 end of season retained and release list, and in today's video I'm going to be reacting to it and giving you guys my thoughts and opinions. If you do go on to enjoy, please make sure to drop a like on there for me. If you could try and hit 100 likes on today's video, that'd be massively appreciated. Subscribe if you're new as well. We're on the road to 9,000 subscribers, so please make sure you are subscribed. If you haven't already, with that post notification bell on, it's free to do so and it does massively help out. Get your thoughts in as well down in the comment section down below on the players that we've retained, released. Some players have had new terms offered, some players have just had their contracts triggered for a third of the season, and some other players have also hit, I presume, appearances, which mean that they are going to be here for next season as well. I wouldn't say there's any major surprises. I would say the biggest one is probably Noah Wadsworth being released, but apart from that, I probably agree with it all entirely. So make sure to drop a like on there for me, subscribe if you are new as well, and let's get into it. So Bradford City tweeted today at 10:59 AM saying we can confirm this season's retained and release list ahead of the 2024-25 campaign. Now normally if there's some big news with a retained and release list, they'll put it out Friday 6 PM, but the fact that it got tweeted I presume it was meant to be 11 AM on a Thursday morning, you would assume that there was going to be nothing major, and I would probably agree with that, to be honest with you. So the club statement does then read: retain list 2023/24. Bradford City AFC can confirm this season's retained and release list ahead of the 2024-25 campaign. The following players have not been offered new contracts and will be released on the 30th of June 2024. Dylan Yumby, Finn Cousin-Dawson, Harry Chapman, Harvey Rowe, Heath Richardson, Isaac Robinson, Liam Rideout, Luke Hendry, Matt Derbyshire, Noah Wadsworth, and also Sam Bentley. So for me personally, I think releasing Dylan Yumby was the correct decision. I said that in my return list the other day, and he was never really going to get an opportunity. I think next season as a striker he would have been 7th or 8th choice, so it makes sense really for him to go out and get some senior football. We kind of knew this a couple of days ago though, because he basically tweeted saying he was a free agent and looking for another club. Finn Cousin-Dawson was given a long-term contract in the COVID season but hasn't played a senior appearance for the football club in a number of seasons. He got relegated this season with Blythe in the National League North, so it kind of made sense again for all parties. He was never really going to make it into the first team. He's 22, 23 now and just nowhere near the standard, so that one made sense. Harry Chapman is probably the one that's caused a little bit of debate in terms of senior players, but for me personally, just not consistent enough. He had a couple injury problems as well when he did play. At times didn't really look fully committed and just kind of lacked the quality a little bit, and was probably one of our higher earners. He was brought in to be a Charles Vernon replacement, so I think for all parties really it does make sense. Again, we didn't have the option to trigger it for a further season, but he didn't really fit into Alexander's system, and when he does play he didn't have enough output in my personal opinion. I think he only managed the 3 starts for us this campaign, which tells you everything you kind of need to know. Harvey Rowe as well, he was someone who I would have personally kept, but I can understand why the club have released him. Again, we knew about this one a couple of days ago when he did tweet that he was a free agent and looking for a club. He's looking for a National League or National League North side next campaign, and obviously didn't get an opportunity this season. I know he has struggled with injuries over the last couple of campaigns, but I don't think he would have been a bad third choice option to have at right wing back next season, but clearly the club disagree with that, and I don't hate that idea, to be honest with you. Heath Richardson has also been released. Again, in my personal opinion, that did kind of make sense with young Zach Hadey coming through, who looks like the better prospect. Heath Richardson was out on loan at step 3 or step 4, did well there, but it's just not good enough for the age that he's at. Similar sort of age to Bobby Poynton, who's playing regularly in the first team. That's the sort of standard we want from our young players. Isaac Robinson, I think again is a little bit of a shame. I've seen him play a couple of times and I think he looks like a good winger, but was he ever going to be good enough to play in the senior side? And also you've got to factor in we're not currently playing with wingers, and it looks like we're not going to be playing with them next season. I don't think at his age he was really going to get that chance next season in the first team, so it makes sense really for his own career for him to go out and get some regular football elsewhere. I expect him to go to a National League North side, to be honest with you. Liam Rideout was finally released as well, which I think is really good news for the football club. He should have gone at the end of last season. He was decent in his first season under Derek Adams, but since then it's just been decline after decline. And don't get me wrong, he's a very good pro and he does everything the right way, but his legs are gone. He simply wasn't good enough, and it's nothing personal against him. He just was not good enough, to be fair, and he seemed like a nice person and a good player to have around the dressing room, very well experienced, but for me personally, just wasn't good enough anymore, and it made sense really to release him. Luke Hendry was next up on the list, but as I'm sure many other people have done, I completely forgot to mention him. Obviously, he's an okay player, a very good professional, has had a couple of injuries this season out on loan at Hartlepool, but I think National League is probably his standard, and we need better than him as a competition for Brad Halliday if we want to progress going forward. So for me personally, I think releasing him is the correct decision. Matt Derbyshire hasn't really played much since Graham Alexander had come in. He's had the odd appearance on off the bench, but has mainly been focusing on coaching for the second half of the campaign. There's no mention here about him being offered that as a permanent thing, so it sounds like he wants to maybe go and play football elsewhere, or Graham Alexander's decided that his coaching hasn't quite been up to standard. But either way, made sense. He should have never been signed by Mark Hughes. He was just kind of doing his mate a favour, and yeah, an absolutely terrible signing. Noel Wadsworth is probably the one that I'm the most sad about, because he looked like a good young player, someone who's come through our academy, and I feel like was probably the closest to Bobby Poynton out of all of the players who've come through this age group in the academy. And he made a few senior appearances this season on off the bench and looked pretty decent. I'm surprised he's not been offered a further year. That tells me that if Wadsworth isn't going to get that opportunity, he would have been third, fourth, fifth choice next campaign to play either centre half, holding midfielder, right back, left back. You know, he was very versatile, and I feel like for me personally, I think he did do enough from what I saw to get a further year. I'm not really too sure why he has been released, and it is one that I disagree with. Probably out of everything in this list, the one that I do disagree with the most. I think another year would have made sense for me personally. I'd be interested to hear Graham Alexander's reasoning for deciding to release him. And we also saw Sam Bentley be released as well. It's a name I've heard of, but not one that I really remember, so I can't really comment too much on. But again, if the club have decided to release him, I don't think he's featured in any type of senior game, so I guess that one does kind of make sense. Let's move on then to some players who will be here for next campaign. The club have activated an option to extend the contracts of the following players by a further season. We know that we had that option with pretty much every player in the current squad, Bobby Poynton and also Brad Halliday. Now, I like obviously the fact that they are going to be here next season, but why have they not been offered long-term contracts? Poynton should be on a 3-4 year contract. Brad Halliday should be on a 2-3 year contract. Just because we've got the option to extend it doesn't mean we shouldn't then try and negotiate a better contract for them, because you know, the club have been bragging about, oh, we don't need to panic, we've got the option of a further year. But this time next season, where Poynton is even better, Brad Halliday is even better, then we're going to have the potential of losing them on free transfers, because if the club don't sort them out this season, they might think, well, I'm going to sort myself out next campaign then and go somewhere else. And for me personally, it's just the wrong way to go about it. Now, they might have triggered the options and then looking to make fresh terms with the pair of them, because I think Poynton, obviously when he'd just come through the academy last season, he's going to be on peanuts, isn't he? He deserves a proper senior wage now, because he's proven he is more than good enough to be playing in the senior first team. And also Brad Halliday, absolutely outstanding. He deserves that bit of security for his young family, and also a pay rise as well. So just to trigger it by a further season, obviously it's good they are going to be here next campaign, but thinking about the long term and the off the pitch effects that it has on these players, I feel like I don't understand why we haven't tried to offer them new terms, like longer term contracts with pay rises, because they both clearly deserve that, and I'm sure no one would disagree with it. Moving on from that then, the club's statement then reads, the following players triggered clauses during this season to automatically extend their contracts by a further season. I assume for the pair of them, which is Richie Smallwood and Sam Stubbs, that this is appearance based. You would assume probably 20, 30, 40 appearances. I don't really know what it is. Obviously Sam Stubbs has missed a couple of games this season through injury and hasn't played since the start of March, since suffering a fractured skull against Doncaster. But again, happy Smallwood is saying, I know he's someone who massively divides the fan base, and judging by the comment section, more of you I think wanted him to be released rather than stay. But I really like Richie Smallwood personally, and Sam Stubbs was one again that I think divided the fan base a little bit, because he was very good for us last season, but then this season had been a little bit inconsistent, didn't really suit Graham Alexander's system. But for me personally, I think at League 2 level he's a more than competent centre half. So again, I don't mind either of them. You think probably the wages Smallwood is on, you might want to reduce them a little bit, but again, he's been very good for us since Graham Alexander has come in for the large part, so I don't really have any complaints with that. The next section is a little bit interesting, because it reads, the following players have been offered new terms with the club. Colin Doyle, who will also remain men's first team goalkeeping coach. Again, for me personally, I'd much rather him focus on the goalkeeping coach aspect and bring in a competent number 2, because I don't think Doyle is bad, but you think he's going to be 39 going into next season. If Walker picks up a twinge, which he could could do at his age, he's 32, 33, he picks up some sort of injury, you are then relying on your 39-year-old goalkeeping coach to be playing competitive matches when you're trying to win a title. For me personally, I'd just rather have a little bit more security in goal, but obviously I don't mind it too much. I'd just rather have another option to be competing in there. And again, you got to think we have got young Zach Hadey coming through. Jamie Walker is a very interesting one because we all know we had the option to trigger it for a further season, but we decided to not take up that option and we've offered him new fresh terms. Now, you would assume that Jamie Walker is one of our higher earners at the football club, and I think the amount of injuries that he gets is a little bit of a concern. I think this is smart from the club. I'm going to assume that the reason why we've offered him new terms rather than to trigger it by a further season is to try and reduce his initial weekly wage and give him more in bonuses if he's fit and available. I guess from Walker's point of view, he might feel a little bit miffed by that, but from a club point of view, you need to be looking after yourselves, and you've only got a certain amount of budget that you can spend. And while Walker is clearly a very good player at League 2 level, if he misses half the season through injury, and a lot of them are not his own fault, a lot of them are contact injuries, and I do feel a little bit sorry for him because referees don't protect him. You think about the amount of stupid yellow and red cards that we've received this season, the amount of yellow cards Small has received this season for good tackles, and then Walker gets his leg broken, and that also only receives the yellow card. Like, the standard refereeing, I think, is really killing Jamie Walker, but it makes sense really from a club point of view to try, and obviously I'm only speculating here, but I can only assume the reason why it's new terms rather than just triggering it is to be a less on the weekly wage and more on an appearance-based contract. I'm not saying if he's on £4 a week, give him 500 quid and £5,000 in appearance bonus, but if you can get that £4.5 a week, for example, down to £3.5, and then more in appearance bonuses, you can then spend that money elsewhere. And obviously, Matty Platt as well, we all know that the club don't have the option to trigger it for a further season, and don't think it will be short of offers, but statistically, Matty Platt is very important to us. We only won one league game, which Matty Platt didn't play in at this campaign, which tells you how important he is to our side. He had a couple of injury problems this season with his hamstring, but again, that probably comes down to how poor our pitch has been. Has a little bit of poor discipline, a couple of red cards the last season, quite a lot of yellow cards this season, but I don't mind that too much. Matty Platt for me is a must keep, and I know again that he's got a few critics in the comments, but for me personally, I think the wider part of the fan base have realised this season how important Matty Platt is to our side, so again, no real complaints with that. The following players remain under contract for the 24-25 season: Adam Wilson, Alex Gilliard, Alex Patterson, Andy Cook, Ash Taylor, Callum Kavanagh, Kieran Kelly, Clark Adore, Jake Young, Kevin McDonald, Lewis Richards, Sam Walker, Timmy Odesina, Tada Smith, and also Verden Oliver. I expect a few of them players to either be sold or definitely go on loan for next campaign. You might struggle to get teams who want to take over their contracts, so you might have to pay them up a little bit, or also you might have to take a little bit of a loss and kind of pay them to go play somewhere else out on loan. But Bradford City have never really been a club to put players on a transfer list. We've never really done that, but I expect a few of these players will be on transfer lists. It's just then, if you don't get the offer in for them, there could be fans questioning, are they really committed if they know that they're not really wanted by the football club, if offers from other sides don't come in. So I can understand from that point of view why the club don't do that. The following players who spent the 2023-24 season on loan with the Bantams have returned to their parent clubs: Daniel Ugoke at Brentford, Jonathan Tompkinson at Norwich City, and Tyreek Wright at Plymouth Argyle. I would like two of them to come back. Daniel Ugoke only on a permanent though, and Jonathan Tompkinson either as a loan or permanently. I'm not interested in Tyreek Wright returning to the football club. I just don't think he has been good enough this time around. I would only take Ugoke back permanently because I think his contract is up with Brentford, and on a free transfer, or we might have to pay a little bit of compensation, I feel like he would be a smart pickup for us. He has been pretty decent on the whole since returning from injury. He has had a few errors and mistakes, but it's League 2, you are going to get that, but I think he has massively improved under Graham Alexander. Announcements regarding academy scholars who have been offered professional contracts will be made in due course. The club would like to take this opportunity to thank all departing players for their efforts while at Bradford City AFC and wish them the very best for the future. I would definitely agree with that, because none of these players who have been released, I don't think have ever given it their all. Just some players haven't been good enough, or they now don't fit into Alexander's system, or they're not the right type of player. So I don't mind this list too much. I would have rather have kept Noel Wadsworth for another season and see what he could produce. I do think that is quite harsh, but on the whole, I agree with it wholeheartedly. I think Poynton and Halliday deserve pay increases and also long-term contracts, but again, nothing has been mentioned about that, and I do think come this time next season, these sort of players might think back to how, I won't say how we've treated them this summer, but I just feel like they deserve a pay rise and a longer term contract for a bit of security for their young families. I guess only time will tell, and in due course, if there is announcements made about Colin Doyle, Jamie Walker and Matty Platt's new contracts, fingers crossed they do all stay, then obviously I will bring a video out for you guys when that does happen. But I'm going to leave it there then for today's video. If you have enjoyed, please make sure to drop a like on there for me. If you could try and hit 100 likes, as I said at the start of today's video, that'd be massively appreciated. Subscribe if you're new as well. We are on the road to 9,000 subscribers, so please make sure you are subscribed if you haven't already, with that post notification bell on. It's free to do so and it does massively help out. Get your thoughts in as well down in the comment section down below on our return list. Are you happy with who we've kept and also who we have released? Let me know that sort of stuff down below. Thank you all for watching. Have a great rest of your day and I'll see you all very soon for another one. Peace.